Hey, what's up, everybody? It is MJ, the Black Wine Guy, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is the one and only André Mack. André, despite having had a successful career with Citicorp Investment Services, decided to leave his desk job and pursue his passion for wine and become a sommelier in San Antonio, Texas. The recognition he got down there propelled him to new heights, got him a gig at the French Laundry, Thomas Keller's world-renowned restaurant. I'm probably going to be hitting you up for some what's it called, reservations once we can go back out. And after that, he was head sommelier at and wine director at Keller's Per Se in New York City. In 2007, he founded Maison Noir Wines. His winery is based in McMinnville, Oregon. He currently produces 60,000 cases annually, and it is pretty much distributed in all 50 states and pretty much worldwide at this point. This year, Maison Noir and André were a semi-finalist for a James Beard Award as an outstanding wine, spirits, or beer producer. And in 2014, André authored and designed Small Time Cooks, which is the world's first culinary coloring and activity book. And most recently, Mack wrote his part memoir and part wine guide, 99 Bottles, A Black Sheep's Guide to Life-Changing Wines, which was released on October 22nd, 2019. He and his wife, Phoebe, also started And Sons Hospitality Group, which includes And Sons Ham Bar, And Sons Buttery, and their boutique wine store, Vyne Yard. Welcome, André. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yay.
All right, that's what's up. So, if you've been following the show, André and I connected Instagram. So, like I said, Instagram's working for me.
It is,
But I think I think part of that, like we said in before the pour, you might hear is I think I know enough to catch people's attention. Like, okay, I'll sit down and hook up with this guy. So thank you very much for being here.
You're
this
welcome.
Is super special to have my first black male guest on the Black Wine Guy Experience.
Thank you.
And we're going to get into that. So tell us about the wine you brought to share today.
I bought a little old school California, so it's a little Kenwood. It has a kind of a special place in my heart. It was one of the first bottles of wine that I opened on a restaurant floor. It was slightly disastrous, and I carried that cork around in my pocket for 2 years, even when I was on the floor at the French Laundry. Just a subtle reminder that that I got to push harder each day. But this is Artist Series from Kenwood. This is 1989 Cabernet. This is something that we typically sell at the And Sons Ham Bar here in Brooklyn.
Okay. Is that did Joel Peterson? Who made that wine? Is that Joel Peterson wine?
This is Joel Peterson wine.
Yep. Cool. Joel Peterson is an iconic California winemaker, known for his work with Zinfandel, especially. He did all the Ravenswood single vineyard stuff. He has a new label called Once and Again, and his son Morgan Twain Peterson is a master wine and has Bedrock. Yep. And they're all about heritage vines and heritage vineyards and preserving California's heritage. I love California wine, so thank you for bringing this vintage stuff on.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
No, for me, these always felt like they were collectible at some point. Where I first started, I started in steakhouses, which is California centric.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the French Laundry, you're like, oh, okay, there's great California wine, like shit you never heard of. Like
right.
I showed up and they were like, Peter Michael, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, shit, 350, 450, 700, 800. You're like, oh shit, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's just like another level, right? And so it was just always interesting to me that these weren't, to me, they weren't the most collectible wines on the higher level, but like to me, they still needed to be appreciated. And if they were around, which they are, I think California, old vintage California represents some of the best value wine in the world at this point.
Oh, definitely, and like
because it's around,
right? Because it's around. So many of these bottles. We had Amanda McCrossin, who was the somm at Press, and obviously you worked out there, so they have this huge California collection. She was saying how they were just snatching up Rieslings back to the 70s and old Stony Hill shards. Like people don't realize and I mean, and even at like $100 a bottle now, if it was that and whatever it is. it doesn't. I mean, when you look at what it costs to pick up Bordeaux at auction.
Oh, yeah.
You
No,
know,
totally. Yeah.
You know, and these are wines, like you said. You know, when you think about the Judgment of Paris, these wines were built to last. They're built to go the long haul.
Absolutely.
People, I mean, I love California wines because they're pop and pour. You know,
Yeah.
you can just decant it if it's young, but people don't realize those wines at this level, they were designed to last 50. They were trying to make them last.
Yeah, totally.
You know, so that's what's up. So man, this is really cool. I want to. Your story is so interesting. I know you've been on a shit ton of podcasts.
No, it's all good, man.
Yeah, but
Whatever you want to ask.
Yeah, but I want. So I'm just kind of background. So, San Antonio, Texas. Okay. So first of all, you're working at Citicorp. What are you doing at Citicorp?
So I had watched I had watched Barbarians at the Gate so many times. And I was like, dude, I need to be in part of this thing. But, I knew that, I was like, oh, man, I didn't go to an Ivy League school, blah, 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 this, and that. So a friend of mine got a job at Citicorp, and he was like, hey, when you come over here, you should come over here, and you can take your Series 7 and 63, like, become a licensed stockbroker, and you sign no contract. So they don't even lock you up.
Wow.
And I was like, huh? But so you would go. So I had to do like 5 months banking on the banking side. So I sat there and like just listened to people, teller. People like, hey, I thought I had $30 in the account. You're like, oh shit. This is before they invented like $10 ATMs, right? So, but I think Citibank decided it was a great idea to put a phone next to every single ATM. And so when you would pick that phone up, it would ring in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And that's where I first started. And then after five months, I moved to the other side, passed the test, and then they changed the rules and said that I had to stay for a year. So we weren't a licensed brokerage firm in that sense. We didn't give advice. We just worked with high net worth individuals. So anybody over 300,000. But it was kind of like a sham. Like you didn't do shit. Like you worked on your short golf game, right? And then when you came on the team, you had to buy like this remote control car. Like you would so they'd give you a catalog and you had to pick out your car, and then we just raced them around the cubicles. I mean, we didn't do anything. Damn. And then the phone would ring, and it was like 24 hours. You could work as much as you wanted. There was like a gym, it was a cafeteria. I mean, it was just like you just kind of hung out. Like you would just sit there.
So are you from Texas originally?
No, I'm from New Jersey. I'm from Trenton, New Jersey.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Trenton makes the world takes.
You know it, baby.
Oh, man, this is dope.
Yeah.
Not only is he a black wine guy, he's also from Jersey like me.
Yeah, no, I'm from Trenton, New Jersey.
Did you go Trenton Central or you went?
No, so I didn't go to any of those. I spent the first 15 summers of my life in New Jersey. So my mom had me when she was 16 and then turned down a full ride to Purdue to have me, right? To not abort me, right? So I could be here, and then went into the military, and then left, and I stayed with my aunt, and then she came back after basic training, and then she loved Texas.
Okay,
like she just loved it,
yeah.
And so we moved to Texas, and then we moved to Germany, we moved to Europe, and then we were there, and then we came back. So I kind of lived all over, but I spent a lot of time in Texas. But every single summer,
you were in Trenton.
I went to Trenton, so it was a source of independence for me.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So I lived in Germany. I got on a plane by myself and flew to Trenton.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Wow. See, that's cool, man. And see that once you start uncovering people's backstory, you're like, okay, like, because you're so accomplished and not for the sake of being accomplished. I think you're just a worker. Like, like you said, you like to build stuff.
Yeah.
So it's coming together in my head, So. You're at Citicorp. You're racing cars around the cubicles.
I mean, it was kind of cush, but like you realize that like, all right, like this is this bigger and better thing that I was supposed to be going on to. Like the whole time I worked at shitty restaurants like Red Lobster, and it was like, okay, this is the new thing, right? I'm not wearing jeans anymore. I'm a grown up now,
right?
And I leave, and you're just like, oh man, it would just be sad. You're like, dude, this is it. This is what my life is supposed to look like. This is the culmination of all that shit I just went through. And you're like, nah, I'm not feeling this. And lo and behold, like Travelers Group bought Citibank.
Okay.
Right? And it was like, okay, they already had Solomon Smith Barney. So they were like, okay, you can't. You're like, so what do you want to do? We're going to go ahead and, what did he say? Oh, we're going to lay people off.
Oh, okay.
And I said, okay, so I'm not getting fired. They're like, no. I said, but you're going to pay me. I was like, you're going to pay me? So yeah, I took a severance package, first time ever in my life. I didn't even know what the word was. I was like, wait a minute. And then And yeah, and I left, and I just kind of spent some time laying on the sofa, watching TV,
Eating Cookie
falling
Crisp.
asleep. Yeah, eating Cookie Crisp. And then this show would come on. It would be back to back to back episodes of the show called Frasier.
Yeah.
And it was from watching that show. I just think like at certain points in your life, you're like, you know what? My life's not going the way that I'd like it to go. And then you see somebody on TV, they're having fun, and you're like, maybe I should have wine in my life.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I should have wine in my life. Like, they're having a great time. But that show really gave me the courage for the first time to walk into a wine shop. And then that was it.
Wow. That's so funny because I'd heard you mention that somewhere years ago. So I watched some, I YouTube some Frasier clips before I came on. And there's the one where he wants to become the cork master. Now he's become the cork master.
Yep.
And it's so funny because I was watching that scene this morning, and you look at the scene, and at first there's one black guy in the scene, and then it turns out there's two black guys in the scene. But it's so funny because I used to watch that show too, late at night. Drinking, probably smoking, just late at night watching, and back then it didn't really dawn on me like it didn't, like how it caught your attention of like, I need wine in my life, you know what I mean? But as those wine scenes are very funny.
They're great, and we went back, and my wife kind of didn't grew up without popular culture, and so we went back and watched all 12 seasons. It was something that we just did. It's like, oh hey, kids are asleep. You want to watch an episode? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not catch an episode.
Watch an episode. Right.
Yeah. We caught too many episodes. That's why we have 4 kids. But anyways, the idea was like, so we would watch this thing, and it was just like really great. And so we've hired an intern. So we have an intern that's basically going back and trying to like document everything said about wine in the show.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just to kind of just like to have it and like to see it and kind of pick it apart a little bit. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was really great. It was just the camaraderie that they had around alcohol. But like for the first episode, he comes over and he says, "Hey," he says, "would you like a scotch?" And he's like, "No, you have any sherry?" He goes, yes, sherry. Right. And then from the rest of the show, when he pops over, he goes, "Hey, fancy a sherry?" And it was this whole thing. My mom was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, you're 27 years old, you're drinking sherry, and you're dressing like a white guy. What's happening with you? Like, she said, an old white guy is what she said. And you're like, okay. All right, I see what you're saying, Mom. Yeah.
Sounds like some shit my mom would say. That's so funny. Yeah, and there was another one. You got to put that together. There was another one where Frasier's afraid of dying. So he's like calls him over and he's giving him instructions, and he's like, "Oh, I feel better." He's like, let's celebrate." And he goes, "We'll have a 75 Chateau de May." And Niles goes, "Oh, no, that's too good for us." Meanwhile, before he told him put a sticker on anything they want, so Fraser goes another bottle wine, he picks it up, put a sticker on it.
Yeah, they were just great. It was great, and I think the one of the producers of the show was a real onophile, and I think he was the one that put a lot of that stuff in. And then it was David Hyde Pierce who really kind of ran with the wine guy persona, right? Because the first audiobook I ever got was Wines for Dummy that was read by him.
Oh, see, I have
on a tape.
You're the second person. That was my book that got that.
It's the best book.
It's the best book. People don't get. That's just the best book. Everything you need to know about wine is in that book.
Correct, but we're offended. Right. Now we're offended because somehow they're calling us dummies.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Right. I know.
Somebody's offended by the title.
I know. Of course. Totally. And that's so true. Like Chappelle said when he was on Saturday Night, "I'm sorry, Lauren. I thought we were doing comedy."
Totally.
Lighten up. And then just because we're on this, because I love you, love the podcast. And then the last one was Roz was dating somebody or something, and they're like, they're trying to find a way to declare her incompetent. And he's like, "Well, has she ever acted irrational?" And he's like, "Well, one time she yelled at the vending machine because a Twinkie came out the yodel slot." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Has she ever experienced any delusions?" He goes, Frasier goes, "Well, she thinks she's responsible for the success of the show." He's like, building. And then lastly he said, "Has she ever shown poor judgment?" "She ordered a bottle of white Zinfandel." He's like, "My God, go get her. You can see." So it was just, they just hit everything on there.
Yeah, they were characters of themselves, and I felt like they really disarmed the wine industry for me in a way, right? You know, the greatest foil to pretension is through humor. It's humor.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I always felt that if I could watch that show, I could arm myself with some comedic anecdotes, right? You know, and it was true. Like, you know, you walk into the wine shop and you're like waiting in line, you get like a little plastic cup and they pour you something. And I was like, okay, no one said anything to me. No one said it to me. And I turned around and there was like somebody standing in front of me goes, how's the wine? I'm like, oh shit. You know, and I felt on the spot and all I could remember was like, well, it's no Chateau de Kim. And then they all started laughing. And at that point, I didn't know Chateau de Kim was white. I didn't know it was sweet. I didn't know that it was so expensive that no one would ever pour it.
It just sounded dope.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, I heard it somewhere. Exactly. Yeah. And like everybody started laughing. I was like, whew. And, you know, then I was off.
That's
so
cool.
So that, you know, that show was really, you know, was really inspirational for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you get off the couch. You're dressing like an old white man.
Yep.
You're drinking sherry in the middle of the day.
Yep.
So where was your first real restaurant job? Like, I mean, even the steakhouse. You mentioned steakhouses.
Yeah, no, totally. So, you know, I worked at, you know, Red Lobster and all that kind of stuff, like all throughout going to school. But afterwards, I got a job at a steakhouse. It was the Palm Steakhouse. They were opening one in San Antonio. And I had some experience. I ate at the Palm. I went to a party at the Palm in Houston, Texas. When I get bored, I want to do something. So I live by this the San Antonio Polo Club. So I would hang out over there watching them. Anyways, I ended up hanging with those guys, and we went to the Palm restaurant. And I remember them just ordering bottle after bottle. And when I looked at it on the list, I was like, this is $700 a bottle. You know, you're like trying to count all the bottles. Mm-hmm. First thing you grab a glass. You know, you didn't even care if it was yours. You
right, exactly.
You start drinking out.
Exactly.
And so I was like, okay. And then I was looking, because this is how long ago I was looking in the classifieds, and you know, and it was like it says Palm.
Paper.
Yeah, it says the Palm. Yeah, I can see the logo. I was like, oh, they're opening one of those here. I was like, and they drink $700 bottles of wine. I'm gonna go work there. And so I applied for a job there, and that's kind of, you know, where I stuck. You know, I worked for the Palm for a long time, and then I worked at a steakhouse that opened right next door, and they gave me my first sommelier gig. And then the rest is kind of history. I went from like steakhouse to French Laundry. Yeah, that's how that worked. I went from like I had no fine dining experience.
I love that. It's because so are you? I mean, there's all this.
There's gaps, right?
Well, no, it's not in the gaps, but like I think about like, so there's this the whole quartermaster sommeliers. Like, are you like? Did you do any formal?
Yeah.
Air quote trainings?
Yeah, I mean, when you do the first level, I don't think that there's any really training, right? Like you study on your own, you show up to a seminar, and then you sit there, you write down all the stuff that you don't know, and then you take a test. Mm-hmm. Like for me, it was just always about the test. Like I'm studying, right. And I feel like I'm studying harder than anybody else I know. And how do I even know that I know this stuff, right? Nobody's walking into the Palm asking for Sancerre, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but like in New York, they would be, right? You know, like in different settings. And so that's what the test was. I took the first level of everything, and that was it.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because I think, you know, I don't have that formal training because I left the business. But back when I was in the business in the late 90s and early 00s, you know, I worked in New York City. I worked at Acker, so I worked at a great store. So I had the same experience, you hanging around these rich dudes who like, we were doing auctions. You go to a pre-auction tasting, there's like every fucking bottle in the world open. You know, you're having like 82 Bordeaux's and DRC and you know crazy Rieslings and like I said, the Peter Mike and all the cult wines. You know, and like and literally, you know, we would do these dinners. Like we did a dinner one time. It was like 12 of our best clients, and we went to some restaurant, mobbed up restaurant, I'm sure out in Brooklyn somewhere. They had closed just for us, and we're in the basement, and we had like. It was ridiculous wines, like, you know, all this vintages of Gaia and just, you know, and fucking White Burgundy and like Krug and, you know, and everything, just everything. And you're just sitting there. And then, you know, of course, vintage port back to like, you know, wherever, the 20s and then fucking Grappa, you know. And you're right. You're at these tastes and you're like, oh, well, he didn't finish his Screaming Eagle. He didn't finish his 82 Chabon. You know?
No, I totally get it.
But I think I had a similar thing. Like, you know, humor and knowing enough and having personality. Because I think a lot of people, and I just like a lot of people, it seems, are too reliant on advancing in levels and understanding that it's more than just your knowledge to be in the hospitality business.
Correct. No, and I think that like accreditations, like, people hang their hats on that. And, you definitely saw that with the court after Somm came out, where people would, felt that they needed to put advanced sommelier. That's not the world that I live in, so I really don't speak upon it anymore, right? In that sense, it's just like, I get it. Like, people do things, people run a marathon just because they want to see if they can do it. Right? Some people get paid to run the marathon, right? Some people understand if they win the marathon that it comes with a windfall of riches or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I think that exists within those levels as well. Some people do it because they say they want to do it and it's an accomplishment. Some people, they never went to college and this is their degree.
Right.
Yeah. So I understand that whole wanting to conform, but also I realize that, like, if you feel like that you need this thing to write your own ticket, you can't write your own ticket. You got to know that you can write your own ticket before you do something like that. Right? It's not gonna help you write your own ticket. You got to believe that you can write your own ticket before that.
Absolutely.
And that was it for me. I moved to New York, and it was just kind of like, I had dinner with a really close friend now, but was very new, and he said, he was asking me about what do you want to do, and he just said, they need you more than you need them.
Right.
He's like, like all of them. They're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be here. That's why it makes your story so much more compelling. Mm-hmm. And so what do you want to do? And so it was just interesting for me. I just felt like, 5 years to pass a test or 5 years to build a multi-million-dollar business. I can't give initials to my kids. And so that was just me. That's my one way of it. But like, also I get like, everybody wants to be Raj Parr. Raj is an amazing individual, but he traded in actually going to these places and knowing the producers and becoming familiar with them. It had less to do about credentials or inside of a classroom studying or flashcards kind of thing. And then, like I said, there's room for everybody. But like for me, it just wasn't in my path.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe more so now that people rely heavy on that. They're like, well, we're only looking for advanced sommeliers, or we're only looking for that. I get that. I think anybody can be taught anything, and then if you have talent, you have talent.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100% with everything you said. Education is not a panacea. Okay. Degrees are not a panacea, and that's why I have a law degree and don't use it. But and in fact, it can hold you back because you think you have to do something because you have this piece of paper versus what do you want to do and what can you do. And you so spot on when it's like, I was telling, when Dustin Wilson was on, I was saying, people need to understand, like you said, there's levels to this game, right? And you may only be a AAA ball player.
Correct.
And that's just the way God worked out with you, what I'm
Correct.
saying? And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't think just because you have the paper, you did this, you're gonna ascend to a certain level. What I can see in you and like you work really hard, like you said, I could spend 5 years chasing a piece of paper, or 5 years building a multi-million-dollar empire, right?
Yep.
And that's my last guest, same thing. Jordan, she was like, Robert told us, like, what are you doing? You want to pour more in this organization or go start your own company? You want to start, and I think that's what's up. And
it's real deal. And this is what I think what's interesting about the newer sommeliers. It's about entrepreneurship. Like, you know what I mean? But I think before you were like, hey, I got a good job. I'm in a good job. Maybe I got MS behind my name. I'm making a little six figures. I'm home for dinner by 7. I still get to go on trips. But you work for a company that you never bought wine from, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the only people who can afford to do that were the big guys, and you're like, no, I'm not working. That kind of thing.
No, I know.
Next thing you know, you're like, telling me Bonterra is like the best Pinot Grigio. You're like, bro.
I know. Bro.
You don't drink the Kool-Aid. I know you've got to feed your family, but you can save that shit, right? But I understand that. But I think what's interesting now is that everybody seems a little bit more entrepreneur. It's like, how can I own something? How can I do this? And I for me, it was always about entrepreneurship. I felt like I always knew I wanted to own something. I just didn't know what, right? And then, I think most of life is like trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, because once I figure that out, I'm gonna do it like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I've been talking about this the past couple episodes. I read Matthew McConaughey's book. It's called Green Lights.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's a good, it's a good book, and he talks about what you said. He said it's just like, his father told him, like, McConaughey was really smart. He went to UT, 3.8 honors, was going to go to law school, and then he pivoted and decided to go to film school. And when he told his father said, "All right, don't half-ass it." So he didn't half-ass, being an actor, and that's the thing is like, don't half-ass it, right? But also you got to know what you're good at too. I think you're fortunate that you found something you're good at, and then you just determined to be the best at it. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, I'm going to play at this level. I'm going to play all-star level. You know?
But it helps. But when you've had that experience before in life, I played basketball. It was good.
Yeah.
I played with Shaq. It was good.
Yeah.
But I realized that like what sucks most in life is like being the guy that had potential. Everybody talked about you having potential to be great, and then listening to all that and realizing that I worked hard, but I didn't work hard enough. Right. And, so that those opportunities had come and gone. And so now I'm like 22 and you're saying, well, shit, you know what? If I'm ever good at something again, I'm never letting go.
Right.
Right. I'm choking the life out of it.
Right.
And, so then it was like the quest. Then it was like, okay, so I'm like hanging out. Okay. So, maybe I want to play chess, so I was playing tennis, playing chess. I was riding horses, like all kinds, like just doing stuff. Like I was like going all in. And then, suddenly this wine thing came in. It only came from like after I got the job at the steakhouse, and, it was during training. We're tasting the wines. It's the first night, and they lined up like 5 different white wines. And I was like, I knew they were different before, right? I knew they were all different. But you're like, yeah. I'm like, how, you know what I mean? You're like, how different?
Oh, yeah. You're like, oh, come on, it's wine.
Yeah, right.
It's grapes.
Yep. And then I tasted the first wine, and then I tasted the second wine and went back to the first wine, and I was like,
right,
I got to do this shit. This shit is crazy.
And were they all the same varietal?
No.
Right.
So it was Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, Chardonnay, and there was like a Viognier, and there was like one other white. And so they had them all lined up, and like, I mean, even to this day, most people don't drink wine or taste wine or experience wine in that way. And to me, it's always the best way. When I try to do a tasting, it's always with two wines, maybe the same color. That way you can like vacillate between both of them and really kind of figure out, it's easier to see the differences.
Right.
Because if the closest most people ever come is like, all right, so finish that up, I'm gonna pour you some more.
Right.
Of something else.
Yep.
And so you have the little bit left, and then now you have the new wine, but you can't keep going back and forth. And that felt like it just blew my mind. And then as you started to dig deeper, it was history, science, biology. It was like all of these things kind of wrapped up in this beverage, and the fact that like you could read about it all day long until you fell asleep. I did. Yeah. But and then you could buy a wine from that place and be excited, like somehow you were transported there. It just clicked, and I was like, I want to know more about this. I want to do this, and then and then you start tasting. And you're like, okay, well, I'm not a gifted taster, right? But I'm gonna be book smart as hell. So I concentrated on the books. But then you started to realize, once I put together my first wine program, it's a skill. Mm-hmm. You just realize that like you just continue to taste. Like there's people that are talented. Raj Parr is talented. He's a talented taster. But I knew I didn't have that talent, but I knew that I was gonna work really hard, and you started to realize it was a skill.
Yep.
Like you could get better at it the more you did it, and that was the most amazing thing for me. And that I would say that changed my interest. Not necessarily changed my life, but it was it gave me something to focus all of my angst and attention on, because I didn't want to be the guy with potential. And then you started to be, right? Like now you were good at wine. All your peers knew you were the guy that like could go somewhere.
Right.
It's the same story. And then just continue to push. So I did go somewhere.
Yeah, you did.
Oh yeah. Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah.
I was out of there.
So did Thomas Keller call you?
No, it's a cool, interesting story. Like it's always like in hindsight, you can connect the dots and you can see, wow, if I didn't get out of that car, like like I would probably still be in San Antonio. I did like this. So always on the quest to figure out if I know this stuff, and I felt like competitions were another way to do it. So you went through the first level of pretty much every single organization that existed at the time, and then now I said, oh wait a minute, this is a competition. I said, okay, let me see what's going on with this, and so the regional finals were so it was 10 states, was in Houston, and I remember being at work. So now I'm working at this place called Bohannon's. Bohannon's is still there, but it had just opened. And, I was like, it was like the first employee. Like I was in the television commercial. I was like talking and shit. It was all it was really funny. And so it was my first wine program job. And there's a wine enthusiast magazine that comes to the restaurant. And, it says Wine List Confidential on it. And so I'm reading the article and it's just talking about the wine list. And I was so inspired by it that I just picked up the phone and I called every single person that was in it. It was 3 people featured. So a woman named Virginia Phillips, who actually used to be in San Antonio, is now in Florida. She was a master. I called her. She didn't pick up. I called Charlie Trotters, asked to speak to the wine director. He picked up the phone. I talked to him and I said, I'd love to come in and work for free. And he's like, okay. So we set that up. It was great. It was easy. And then I called this guy in Houston, Texas, a guy named Paul Roberts, and he had just become a master sommelier, the only master sommelier in the state. And I called, and I left a message. And I didn't say what I wanted. I just left a message. So we played phone tag. And then finally, after I left a message saying what I want, hey, I'm going to be up in town. I was wondering if I can come hang out on the floor with you. He never wrote me back. He never called me back. And then it was a mutual sales rep that knew him. And he's like, let me see what I can do. And he's like, he said, Paul, I got this kid, man. He's like, he just wants to hang out with you on the floor.
Yeah, you're about to say fuck him.
Yeah. No, I probably did say fuck him.
I'm sure you did.
And I was moving on. And my friend, he the night before, he's like, okay, show up at the back door at 4:30 tomorrow. And I'm like, huh? Okay, cool. And so my girlfriend is dropping me off, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I don't want to go in there. You know what I mean? I was on cold feet. It's like, I want to go to the gallery with you and go shopping. You know what I mean? I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I was like, no, I'm going to go in here. And I opened the door, and that was a moment that changed my life. And so I go up, and here's this guy running around. He's like, okay, hey, here's the wine list we're going to be working with tonight. And I was sitting in this boardroom thing, and there were wine lists wrapped in saran wrap that filled the whole table. It was like a 10-foot table. And I was like, what is going on here? And then, and then I remember we get off the phone. We're walking down the stairs to go get a espresso, and he says, yeah, it's been a little hectic around here. He goes, so this was the Thursday. He says, on Monday, I accepted the job to be the wine director for all of Thomas Keller's property. I was like, oh, shit. Okay, hey, all right. Well, thank you. You were busy. Maybe that's the reason why you didn't call me back. Wow. And so we walk down the stairs. We start talking. I tell him my story. And then, Josh Reynolds shows up, who was the national sales director at that time for Rosenthal. Okay. And so we just sit there. And next thing you know, Paul makes us margaritas, right? I think he was on his way out. We were drinking margaritas out of burgundy glasses, right? With ice, it was amazing. And we're sitting there just talking. And then he's like, okay, all right, now we're getting ready for service. We move the margaritas to the back. And then he's like, all right, it's time to hit the floor. And we just started working the floor. And it was like we had worked together before. I was like, no, I got that too. Non-verbal. I got that one. You get that one. And then he was like, hey man, he's like, you got any Conterno on your list? I go, yeah. He goes, which one? I go, Aldo Grand Brucier. He's like, what vintage? I go, 97. So it was this thing of him filling me out. And at the end, he's just like, hey, I have to hire 6 sommeliers. Do you want to come to the French Laundry? And I was like,
shut the fuck up.
Fuck yeah. And then he said, hey, so what does your girlfriend do? I said, oh, she works at the bakery at the Central Market. She goes, Thomas just opened up a bakery. and so it was a combination of that. And then I went and did this competition. And then the guy who was kind of giving away his crown, he also worked at the French Laundry. And he was like, I remember afterwards we were all hanging out on the beach. And he's like, hey, you know what, Mike, you should really pursue if you want to work at the French Laundry, you should really pursue it. It's like, and so he said, I can push for you from my side. And that was it. Paul called me and he's like, hey, we'd love for you to come out. And so I came out and interviewed, and Yeah, I remember sitting across the picnic bench from Thomas, and he's like, yeah, so I've been hearing all this really great stuff about San Antonio. Why do you want to come here? And I was like, is this a joke? What do you mean?
Are you crazy?
Why would you mean when I want to come here?
Fucking Napa Valley.
And it was funny. And then I was like, I said, I need discipline. Like, I feel like, in most places, there's only one or two people that actually care about the work that they're doing.
Wow.
And I need somebody there to to help me out when I got to take off the cape. I can't wear the cape today. I need somebody else to push me. And he was like, discipline? He goes, we could do that. And then that was it. I went back to San Antonio, and, I guess a couple of weeks later, Paul called me, and he was like, all right, you got it. And he's like, how soon can you get here? And I was like, doing the math. I was like, about 5 weeks. And he's like, I think I gave him a date, and he's like, okay, now I'm not talking to you as your boss. I'm talking to you as your friend. You need to get here as soon as you can. I said, I'll be here in a week.
Exactly.
And I put all my stuff in storage, and but it was a great opportunity, and I think opportunities present themselves, and you either rise to the occasion or you don't.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the planning and all that kind of stuff is great, being prepared.
Right.
But the idea is it was just there. I mean, I didn't have money for suits. Like, I was selling all my stuff. My mom bought all my stuff from me. Right. And then bought me some suits. Yeah. And then I drove across the country.
How old were you then?
I think it was 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's just like, people got to get, like, there's so many synchronicities in life. There's a couple things like Oprah. What does Oprah always say? Luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah.
And but just like you said, like, it's like that story where, like, the young black teen's in the car, and he stays in the car, and his friend buck somebody, and he's in jail. He didn't get out the car, or he gets out the car. Like, you're like, no, let's just go to the food court.
Yeah, let's go to the food court and hang out. Give me an orange Julius.
Exactly. They want me to come in the back door. It's 2,000. How can I send a black man in the back door? I mean, your mind could have went so many places.
No, totally. But it's like, you have to turn over those rocks, and just by showing up, I was definitely prepared. I felt like he was asking me stuff. I was on point, right?
Yeah.
And it was just great. And then I won the competition. The regional final. I came back, and he's like, all right, man, we got to celebrate. So he brings down the crew cup, because he had just crew cupped it.
Yeah.
Put it on the counter. He's dumping a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada in it. And I'm like, just like drinking it, and medals floating in it. It was just a great time. He's like, you want to have dinner? And I was like, nah, you know what, man? I'm just gonna go have some hot dogs. And so he gave me some Beaujolais. He gave me some Grand Cru Beaujolais. He's like, "This is a great hot dog wine, man. I'll see you later." I just, I think my life has always been that way. It's just you just say, it's lots of moments where this can't be as good as it gets for me, and I want more. And then you go down that path. You say, I want to do this. And then you start to do it at whatever level that is.
Yeah.
We homeschool our kids because I want my kids to explore their passions at an earlier age.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, if you get all your work done, we'll go swimming on Friday.
Right.
No, if you're into swimming, we get you a tutor and you swim every morning.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely. I want to talk more about that.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm jumping around everywhere.
No, it's fine. Let's hold that thought about homeschooling your kids. So you have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Getting hot in here, huh? You good?
Yeah, man. It's warm up in this piece. So, yeah, I noticed that. So, one article, you had 3 sons. So you just had your 4th son.
Yeah, he's 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting, because what book? I was reading another book, or listening to a book, Jordan Peterson's book. I forget what it's called but it's actually a very interesting book about principles or something. But he talks about... and I see why it's controversial, but it's not really controversial if you listen to the book. But genetically, having boys, and sons is real. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are literally creating this huge legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You have shifted. Your mother was in the military, so I mean, she probably saved well, but you have shifted your family's
Mm-hmm.
wealth trajectory
Mm-hmm.
by doing what you're doing. And so I love what you said. You homeschool your kids because. they're not going to learn anything in school that's going to be really useful in life when they have parents who are both entrepreneurs and running all these businesses. And like you said, they can explore exactly like you get a tutor and go swim in the morning, when you have energy or whatever. Yeah. And instead of like, it's something you do after school and you're tired and you're angry because you've been in school all day. So what's that like? Like, running a business, an empire with your wife, with 4 boys running around.
It's great. It's really great. My wife was like, I wanted either 2 or 4 kids. And I was like, okay.
You said, I got you.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said in the second round. I said, I can make that happen. Yeah. Right. But like, it's an interesting thing. I feel like it wasn't, it's not this chip on the shoulder that we think that we could do better. It's like, one day I turned to my wife and I said, are we fucking up? Like, should our kids be going to Horace Mann? It's $45K a year times 4. Like, are we messing up? Should we be doing that? And she's like, well, if you want them, it's more about like the connections and the networking.
Right.
And I said, well, our network is pretty cool in a certain field, but like whatever.
Right.
But I felt like with that budget, we could create a curriculum that was full of travel, language. We could create an awesome education for our children with that kind of budget.
Right.
And so that's what we said. We said, don't let your school get in the way of your education. And so we
100%.
We travel, we move. We moved to Europe for 4 months. Like, it's this thing of like really like immersing them in what we do. And, the dinner talk is table. The talk at the dinner table is a lot different than when I was growing up as a kid.
Right.
Owning a business and talking about a lot of those things. Just my kids are a lot familiar or a lot further along than I was, just knowing about the basics of business and money and finance than I was.
Right. 100%. I mean, my dad worked at the post office and, he did well because he's a baby boomer. He was just in an age where if you made $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
And saved it, you could do something.
Yeah.
But I have a day job in education, and education's so broken, particularly for brown kids. It's so broken. Like you said, like, I mean, you go to Horace Mann for the connections, right? But the kids go there, and then you go to, it's an anointing. You're just getting anointed. It's not like, there's a superior education. But I mean, with what you do and the businesses, like, you're rubbing shoulders with those kids' parents anyway. The hedge fund guys are coming to your restaurant. I mean, so you're in that world.
No, totally.
Way,
and the fact of it is, they could go there.
Right.
Like if they wanted to, they could go there. It's just not. It just wasn't in our plan. Like my wife comes from that world. She just didn't want to. She just wanted to be a part of it in that way. And that's kind of how we lead. I had to sign a prenup to get married. You know what I'm saying? It's like...
They were like... Her dad was like, oh, Andre, before you convert...
It's all good. My shit's worth more now. It's all good.
I love you, baby. That's what's up, exactly. So your wife... I read an article about when you left Per Se, because your wife wrote an article.
She wrote a book, rather.
Wrote a book about like an insider's guide to the goings on. Tell me a little bit about that, man.
It wasn't a tell-all. It was a tell some. And let's be honest, it was in this day and age, it was a love letter. Right. I think we live in a world now. It's the tear down. It's like, oh, that was savage. Like, I hate that shit. Like it's the cancel culture where it's like we want to hear all the bad and dirty shit about people.
Right.
And and that wasn't what that was about. It was a love letter to that restaurant, and it was great. And she had the foresight to say, hey, you know what? I want my kids are going to read this book.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I want it to be something that I'm proud of. So it wasn't. It was about a 27-year-old Ivy League educated woman finding her way in New York, ended up at the most anticipated restaurant opening in the last 25 years in New York City. And it takes you through, when this world famous chef who basically got ran out of New York, it was his homecoming. So what was happening? He hired, retired famous ballerina to teach us how to walk through the dining room, that kind of. So it's a lot of the behind the scenes. I think chapter 2 was adopted by most of the culinary schools as required reading for their service class. And then the second half of the book, she meets a dark and mysterious and handsome sommelier. And And then the rest is history, you know. But yeah, I think because you don't ask permission, and I get it. You know, if one of my employees were writing a book about me, I'd be a little shook. You know, I'm like, oh shit, really?
Right. Okay, Playboy.
Yeah, but we already lock them up. You know, we got NDA on NDA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but anyways, it just, you know, I understand both ways.
Sure.
But you know, she had a right to write about her story, and I thought it was great. And then, you know, it was that thing. She came home early on the book tour, and she's like, you know, I want to have a family. And I was like right now, like right now, like okay. And so yeah, we started. I quit to start Maison Noir Wines, and we started having kids. We had like our first one in '08, and that's kind of been it, you know. And so I've been making wine I left the restaurant in '07, so for 13 years we've been at it.
That's incredible. Let's talk about Maison Noir because what'd you get, that cease and desist letter, man? How'd that go down?
A lot of them.
So yeah, because I remember when it was, you know, I was like Mouton Noir. I was like, I love that black sheep. Who's the black sheep? What's a black sheep?
That's right. Yeah, no, I started the company. I created the logo. It was a screensaver on my computer at Per Se. It was always, you know, while decanting priceless bottles of wines, and I'm cracking jokes about the wines I'm going to make, and you know, just having a good laugh. But when it was time to leave, you know, it was something that I really held on to. I was like, I can do this, and I think working at Per Se really gave me the confidence to say that I could do that. I mean, like, you know, Josh Reno says, dude, this kid is ballsy. And I was and I was kind of offended in a way because I didn't know what he meant. But he's like, you know, you have the audacity, like you're just doing it. Like you didn't ask anybody's permission. Like you're just doing this thing. And I was like, oh, but isn't that what you all did? Right. Like it didn't seem any different from what I saw everybody else doing. Right. And so it was interesting. So yeah, Mouton Noir, you know, for me it was, you know, obviously, you know, there's not a lot of people that look like me doing what I do. Yep. But also, you know, within the four walls of the Thomas Keller restaurant group, I did things differently. I was a black sheep. My approach, how I talked about wine, the clothes I wore, it was just different. And you know, and I embraced that. You know, it's funny, you know, I always talk about, you know, standing on the stage. And I talk about, you know, the definition of being a black sheep. Embrace what makes you different, because ultimately it's what's going to help you propel you to success. And then, you know, some people was like, well, you're just selling black. And it's like, no, that's all you can see. Right. See, you see the first thing that makes us different is my skin tone. So you think that I'm holding up saying rah, rah because I'm black. Right. And I'm saying rah, rah. If you look at my body of work, I just don't do shit the way other people do. Exactly. And that makes it different. If my Caucasian counterpart got up here and said that, I wouldn't think that he's selling white. Right. And so, you know what I mean? So it's always interesting and tricky, you know, where people are like, oh, it's this thing. And it's like, no, it's for anybody who wants to buy wine. Right. This is, and we've all felt like black sheeps. We've all felt out of place, outcast. Right. And, you know, I just remember that was going to be the thing that set me apart. Like, because in a world of blue blazers with red pens, they were all the same. Yep. They were all the same. Yep. And what made me different or memorable, right? Like in that idea was like, what you say, oh, that's the black wine guy. Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, that was the easiest way for them to distinguish you. Right. Because you stood out. There wasn't anybody that looked like you. Right. And so I ran with that. I said, you know, this is how we're going to create this company. Right. And that just gave me creative license to do whatever the hell I want. I don't come from a wine legacy like Carlo Mondavi, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be, you know, there's got to be some pressure to say, I'm doing things within my, you know, within the legacy of my family's business, even though they're my own. There's things that I should be watching out politically, blah blah. I don't care, right? You know what I mean? I just do it. If it doesn't work, I don't care. Right. Like, I'm going to show up to your office just like this. I don't care. Right. You know what I mean? Right. Like I just did whatever and I'm not rude about any of it.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
I'm just not apologetic.
If Gary Vee could take meetings with billionaires in sneakers and a skull cap on, why can't you?
Well, no, but that's my boy. So we came up together and like it's been it's been great.
He was taking over his family business when I was over at Sparrow in Hoboken. I was the assistant wine director over there, and he was starting to take over. he deserves everything he's got because like we would do like our Skurnik rep was Anthony Austin. I think he's with like Verity now or Angel Share. I can't remember. And he was doing these tasting. He's like, I think Gary never came to a fucking tasting. It was Sunday. His ass was working.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and now he's reaping the rewards of that. You
Correct.
know, and you know, big ups for that. But that's like you said, like people, like you're not selling black. Like I read an article in like one of the Oregon papers, and you know where you said, you know, they asked you about racism, and here's my thing with that, like. Why would I expend any energy on something I can't change my color?
Correct.
So why would I expend any energy on that?
Correct. It's their problem.
Is
It's
that
not mine.
exactly? And I'm just going to keep working. And you know that was the thing. I'd go to the wine tasting. You know, the only black guy there. You know, the views tasting they you get that funny look. There's just sometimes there's this look, and part of it's me, you know, looking for. But they pour you glass. You call out a tasting note. They're like, oh, you're in. Like you said,
Correct.
like
Ticket, yeah.
you use like I've always used humor to diffuse things because I was a skinny kid and you had to be funny. You know, like you used to get teased, so you had to find a way out of it. So that's kind of, and my mom was funny as hell. But you find a way, and that's what I do in my feed. Like you know, I like the way you talk about wine. It's like you know, like one of your labels. It was like. Leather whips and cherry pits.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
But I think you have to be, right? Like I think the biggest thing around wine is the language, right? You have to say the right things. And I always just tell people, just say what it reminds you of. If it reminds you of that, say that.
Right.
If it reminds you of that, say that.
Right.
And you know what? I think a lot of it, of my attitude, like it was just first, right? So a lot of the things that I did got me in trouble because the wine business didn't know how to be parodied, right? You know, it's like they were all like, because I said Barolo King and put it on a T-shirt, somehow you thought that was I was comparing their wine to Barolo, and it was just like this thing. It's like no, this is typical in skate culture, right? This is how it happens. Like you're like you're anointed. Like this is like you're like you're a legend after this, right? You know, and it's like you guys didn't get that. You thought that I was making fun of you, but actually the T-shirts are basically how I saw. This was my life through my lens when everything you think about is wine. Right. And walking down the street or you're watching a commercial and it's like Burger King. And you're like, Burger King, Barolo King, the king of Italian wines. Right. You know what I mean? But it was just like as you like, you know, because everything you're studying, everything's like you're processing everything. And the T-shirts came along as just me, you know, how I process information and how I saw the world from someone who was obsessed with wine, which there are tons of people. And the people who those T-shirts resonate, I think they felt the same way. Right. But, you know, I got lots of legal letters from a whole bunch of different people. A lot of, you know, Albert de Verlaine from DRC. You know, the biggest one was probably, you know, Mouton Rothschild. And, you know, that you know, rolled into like a 6-7 year thing. Where they, you know, they felt like I infringed upon their trademark, and I was like, that's kind of dumb, you know, kind of, it just never made sense, right? Yeah. But you know, at this point, you know, I'm in it for the story. You know, I changed the name, right, because I wanted to be able to come on this podcast and tell them that they suck. Right, exactly. Right, you know what I mean? Yeah, no, so I mean, yeah, come on, man. So that was my thing. There was no one in the world that would ever mistake what I did for what they did. Right, that's ludicrous. So not that your wines aren't, but like you're a fucking icon. Relax, bro. Yeah. So it was a lot of that. You're an icon. Your family owns all the banks in the world. Blah, blah, blah. Come on, dog. You worried about? I'm selling some T-shirts. And it was a big cases, dog. Yeah, it's like you know, big bank take little bank. So you know, I knew it, and you know, I guess the most eye-opening thing about all of it is that I realized that the wine business is pretty litigious, and to think that and now I'm like sitting back, and you're like, and to think that it would not be. It's a whole bunch of people with money. Well, exactly, right? I mean, that's so funny you say that. It is very litigious. It's an interesting world, you know. It's a very interesting world, and learn how to navigate it and be in it. But that's very funny. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing but people with money who a lot of them, like you go to Napa, it's like, okay, I made $1 billion in Silicon Valley. Now I'm going to just come out with a $700 bottle of wine. Yeah. And it's just so competitive. So, you know, and everybody's trying to, I mean, at some point you realize that like all the names are taken up. Oh. And you're just kind of like, so what is this? But anyways, I got in a legal battle with these guys. And I just changed the name. Like I changed the name because I wanted to be able to talk about it. And
That's so smart and that's so dope, right?
So we just change it to Maison Noir Wines and we keep it trucking.
And now you get to tell the story.
Correct, because all the people who supported me, they deserve the right to know that like these people came in and said, I represent 0.0001%. And like all of a sudden, like I'm some threat to you, right? And like, it was just, it's like this name goes back to, we've owned this name since the 1800s, but it's been Mouton hyphenated Rothschild.
Right.
You're like, ah. So, but, like I said, I'm in it for the story. I don't care. So, like now it's just like, okay, this is what it is.
When that stuff happens, like, it doesn't sound like, but was there ever like a time you're like, man, were you unsure? Once you went into wine, was there a point you thought about quitting, or was any?
Oh, dude, it's every day, man. It happens every day, right? Like, the idea is like, we all have self-doubt, right? And it could creep into the most successful people. And, it's always like when I don't expect it. I was like, I was walking around Heights Chateau maybe 4 years ago, during Christmas. All right, so it was Christmas Eve. I had dropped my family off. They were going to some church service around the corner. And so I'm walking around in there. And I was like, I'm waiting for the guy to come over so we can look at the cellar book. And I was like, okay. And so I'm walking around and I'm looking at all the wines. And so I see all my friends' wines. Yeah. And then the more and more I look and I don't see my wine, and then I'm like, man, you're such an idiot. Like, why did you think you could do this? Like, I mean, you can just hear it. Why do you think this do that? And then, and in that one moment, I'm trying to put all my self-worth, because my wine is not on the shelf at this place that I respect, but all my other friends are. And I was like, oh man, they must think I'm a loser. And then you're just like, what are you talking about? And then I walk around the corner and there it is. It's like, oh, there it is. And so I bought them some pizza. I bought them like 4 large pizzas so they could eat. So, I just, I think it's always there, right? Like when especially when it rains, it pours. It piles on you. But like you have to look at the situation. Everybody's doing what they do because they have their best interests at hand. Right. I had a situation where someone said, our best customer called and found out you sold some wine to somewhere else and we didn't know. I said, but they're not my best customer. And my best customer said, he ain't buying from you unless I sell to him directly. Right? So like in the end, we do what's in our best interests. And, so some days I take it personal, some days I don't. But like you got to find a balance between that and a balance between fuck them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because, in the end of the day, it's your life. And it, like I said, it's like, I've done it. It's like, last time I checked, this is my company. So I don't know why you're trying to give me advice on how to do my shit. Right. And, so like, but you get that. You get into some of these things, and sometimes I feel like I'm being crazy, or is it unraveling? And then like the next thing, so it all, once it starts to pile on, then you're like, man, like, did I, why did I think I could do this? Like, did I take on too much? And then it is. It's like someone said, he's like, I was talking to a friend, and he was a business partner. He's like, well, it's all a gray area until it's not, right? That's kind of say it's all kind of weird until it's not. Right. Right? Like, so it's like, it's gray, it's a gray area, and then you just do that, and then now it's not, right? And so, and that's through communication or some of those other things. But there's always moments that I feel like that it could all come tumbling down. And what I didn't realize is that, if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, it is that, right? It feels like a house of cards. So you're there, and I'm telling my wife, we're like 8 years in, and she's like, how are you feeling? You good? I'm like, and it's like, no, it's great. Like, have money in the bank. Like, we have no debt. Like, all of this shit. But then you're like, but if this one person doesn't pay us, it might come falling down, right? But it's like, it feels like this house of cards. But even when you, in Steve Jobs' book, he talked a lot about like it's the fear of losing it all. Maybe less of that, because I feel like if I lost it all, I know how to build it back faster.
I've heard that. Like that's the best part about being an entrepreneur is like once you've built a business, if you've done it right, I pay attention. You know how to build it again. Like it's the knowledge. And I'm big destination guy, but I'm really working on like the journey. Like there's so much you get on the way. And that's what I've heard. Like, there's people like, if I lost it all, you could drop me off anywhere in the world. And within a year I'd be a millionaire again, and the feeling to be able to have that inside of you has got to be like priceless,
I think it's true. You know, I mean, just think about it. You're putting together some IKEA furniture, then you realize that you put it on backwards. You're like, fuck. Then you got to undo it and do it again. But it took you forever to do it the first time. But the second time you got it, and it's like, okay, I got it. Right. And I think kind of the same way. So, you know, I'm definitely, you know, always have a healthy dose of risk on my plate.
Right.
Or what I could be chilling right now. Like, I don't like, you know, before I came here, I had to let one of our employees in. They were doing a delivery and all this stuff was happening. I was like, to be honest, I don't need any of this shit, dude. I was good. Like, you know, me and my wife were trying to figure out where we're going to live 6 months out of the year besides New York. Right.
Right.
Exactly. And I was like, I don't want to be that person.
Right.
Like, I feel like, let's do something. Let's contribute to our neighborhood. And she's like, why? And I was like, no, we can do it. Let's do it. And so we got back into the restaurant business. And, you know, and I said, you know, this is not about making us rich. This is about this is the building blocks for what's next. It's for the big thing that we want to build. Right. This is just a teaser to show the world what we can do. Right. Because everybody has to put you in the box. They're like, well, wait a minute, aren't you this guy? And you only do that? And I'm like, no, I can do this too. Right. I can do that too. Yep. But everybody has to put you in the box so they can actually go on with their own life.
Well, exactly, because they, for their own mental stability, you have to fit into a model inside their head, you know. And so let's talk about, so you launch & Sons, you're getting ready to launch, and then boom, COVID-19.
Yeah. You know, it was an amazing 2 months. We were open for 2 months. Mm-hmm. I think what softened that blow is because I signed the lease 3 years before, right? So it took 3 years to get open. Wow. I had signed the extension for the lease, so we got two 3s and a 4, so 10 years, and I was signing the next part of the lease, and then we opened the next day. So I felt like we hadn't been open long, so whatever. Like, it just felt like it wasn't, you know, we'll just start over. It didn't matter. But it was amazing. It was amazing. It was packed. We got to spend a lot of time with our friends, and it was great. And then it closed. It closed us down, and I felt like, okay, now I can invert my attention. We'll just leave this here, and then we'll work on next door, which was going to always be the provision store. Mm-hmm. And so we fast-tracked that. We opened it in April for online. Mm-hmm. And then maybe about 2.5 months, 3 months, we started letting people in. Okay. So a couple of people at a time. And it's been great to watch it grow, and that whole idea of like building something and like it's there. In the meantime, there was so I signed the lease, and it was 3 years. I think I celebrated because we signed the lease, and I was so excited about like what we were going to do in the space that like. And then I had to, you know, and then I was on the road. You know, I get on the plane almost every single week. And so I would be gone and focusing on other stuff. And then we would have a contractor, then they would leave. Then we finally got a contractor. So by the time you looked up, it was 3 years. And then we got an audit. So it was a lot of stuff. And I guess I kind of got bored. I don't know what happened. I was telling my wife, I thought maybe I was depressed or something. Like I didn't feel alive. There was just something, I just felt like I was going through the motions. And I was out in California, on a rare like weekend thing, and I was like, okay, and it just hit me. I was like, no, I think the next wave of restaurateur, like you have to have a wine shop, right? Like that's the low hanging fruit, right? You already have a following, these people that buy wine from you at a 3-time markup, but if they like something, and then it just, you know, but it all clicked. You know, I had been talking about what I call 360 hospitality and how the restaurant business is, you know, how it will all morph and change. Like your favorite designer is going to have a hotel, right? Like they spend all this money on the showroom, and they pay rent to the showroom. Now they're going to get their customers to come in and stay in the showroom and pay for it in the form of a hotel. Everything's for sale. And so when you start to see Restoration Hardware get into food, then you realize that was a driving factor, right? I think, what is it? Not Urban Outfitters bought Mark Vetri's pizza place and started to put the pizza place in there because people were going out to eat. People weren't going to shop. Right. And then I saw the Gap had an Airbnb. Right. And I was like, okay, because my business model was never set up on that kind of experience. It was set up on you build a product, you build a brand, you build a product, and you sell it, and you go to all the places where you would like it to be. And so that's what I had been doing. And then part of the restaurant project was we would get back into, slowly get back into restaurants, because I'm like, should they giving away free money? Developers, like they start to understand they're giving away free money to put locations in different places and ideas. And I was like, okay, all right, I got this. Right. And then, somebody from Raleigh, North Carolina was trying to fly me down because they were interested in the ham bar. And I was like, but it's not open yet.
Right.
Like before it was even open.
Right.
And so anyways, I called some friends that had owned a wine shop down the street, on the same street. And I just said, hey, I texted him. I was like, if you're ever looking to sell, I'm your guy. He says, let's talk. I mean, that was the next text.
Wow.
And and so we bought the shop. It's like 200 square feet. And, that's at one end of the street, and then that bookends on one side, and then the ham bar is on the other side. Mm-hmm. And then we have, what do we have? Then we have the provision store next door, the next block. I just signed a lease for our office, so I'll finish signing the paperwork when I leave here. And so our office will go in there for all of my employees, and then the front half is like it's going to be like a little breakfast taco. You know how I like tortillas?
Oh, man, yeah, man.
So it's a little breakfast taco joint, cold pressed juice. Yep.
Breakfast tacos. Used to get them I get them in Austin.
Yeah, no. So it's like an Austin joint from San Antonio. Yeah, so cold pressed juice, Topo
exactly.
Chico.
You told me that.
Yeah. And then 2 more blocks down from that, I signed a lease in January, so it's going to be our bakery. So we bought a stone mill. We're going to be milling our own flour, making bread, and then I started a flour company called...
This black man is audacious.
Yes.
It's not just wine with this one.
No, it's not.
Milling his own grain?
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Yeah, it's going to be Mack Way, Mack Boulevard.
Yeah, the neighbors all know. It's so funny. They when they see an empty storefront, they're like, "So what are you going to do up there?" And I was like, believe it or not, I looked at the space already, and we passed on it. And so they're starting to get it. I think I love our neighborhood. It's ever since I moved to New York, it's been one of those things where I lived in places that didn't have the amenities to really keep me in the neighborhood as far as like on the level I wanted to eat at. Right. And I lived in Harlem. You see the same thing, but you're walking around and you're like, if I had some money, I'd put this there, I'd put that there. And then eventually all those things came.
Right.
I moved to Crown Heights. You saw every neighborhood I went to, I saw it. And then when I got to my neighborhood, it was prime for it. And you're like, okay, maybe it's not ready yet. And then it starts to happen. I saw there was an independent bookstore that opened, and I was like, shoot. I called my mama. I was like, it's on. She's like, what? I was like, it's on. Like they're not putting independent bookstores in many neighborhoods. And I was like, okay, that means people with disposable income that are buying books. And I was like, okay. I said, okay. So, and we had just moved back from France, and my wife was like, so we're actually doing this? I was like, nobody's moving anywhere, right? It was like, nobody's moving anywhere. This is what we're going to do. Yeah. And she gave it the blessing. And then, we've been on the attack on the street, and it's been fun. Just like, I don't think any of my neighbors knew what I did, Right. They're just like, he just wasn't there, My wife was like a single mother. Right. Yeah, she's a single mother. Her husband's around,
Exactly. Well, at least the dad's around.
Yeah, right.
He pops in.
Oh, they're married. They're married, right? It's not out of wedlock.
Exactly. Right.
But so it's been fun. So yeah, I mean, we just I'm pouring a lot of energy into it, and I was telling someone, it's like, someone said, hey, we came by the other day, and so someone invited me to dinner last night, and I was like, nah, it's like, I only have 2 nights a week that I can actually have dinner with my family. Right. So I'm gonna stick around. Trust me, I probably would have came if my wife wouldn't have said something. Right. Right. And they were like, hey, we totally miss you tonight. And then she said something like, you looked a little tired or something like that. And I was like, oh, don't let the mask fool you. I had a big smile on underneath, right? And she goes, no, I know you're smiling, but I've never seen you tired. You looked a little bit tired. And I was like, oh, I'm not offended. I'm doing a lot of shit. Yeah. What do you mean? A lot of shit, right? So.
Yeah, my producer's like, Jesus, she was, when does this guy sleep?
I don't.
Yeah, she literally said that. And why ham? I mean, that's obviously not going to get you on the cover of the Final Call as the Black Entrepreneur of the Year. But
yeah, right. It took a minute.
I know. That's going to marinate with the audience.
Whatchamacallit? No, it was just something that I had always been interested as a kid. Yeah. I like the pork.
Well, me too. I grew up. If Mama cooked a breakfast without hog, we had a problem in my house.
That's right.
Sorry.
And But it was just the idea of traveling to other places and why prosciutto was famous or more
so
famous.
expensive.
And you're like, what's going on here? But there was a sense of pride around it, a country, national pride, even for Spain. And I
What's the Spanish one? It's not Serrano. What's the real expensive one?
Iberico.
Yeah, Iberico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I came to my first restaurant.
I had one of those. Weird wine story. So it was at it was a guy who when I worked at Sparrows, Armando knew the Jorge Ordonez guy.
I went to Spain with Jorge. Yeah.
But his distributor lived like in Maverick or something. And he would drop an Iberico in the middle of a pallet because you can't bring that shit in.
Yeah.
And so we were at his house and we're just drinking through the portfolio. So and drop all the funky cheeses right in the middle of the pallet, smuggle it into the country. Yeah.
No, I was reading Vino Italiano, and I think that was the book that I was reading when I was in Yountville, and I was excited to go to those Bastianich joints.
Yep.
And I remember walking into one. I think it was Odo. It was one of them, and I was like, what's that thing that looks like a Ferrari over there? It's like candy painted red, chromed out. I'm like, what is that? They're like, oh yeah, it's a meat slicer. And they're like, Joe collects them. It's like he collects them. And I'm looking at them, they're like $25,000, $35,000. I said, that thing? And they're like, yeah. I was like, holy shit. And I was enamored. So I'm like looking at it. So I ordered a whole bunch of meat so they could slice it on it. and I was like, this is really cool. I was really digging it. And then, I used to spend a lot of time at, what was the other one? Bar Hamon. And that reminded me a lot of the places in Spain.
Yep.
And I thought that was great. And I always said, if I was going to own a place, it was always going to be small, blah, 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 place I wanted to drink at. And then I started to look at these slicers. And I found that, some of them were American made and like from the 1900s. And I was like, so what were they slicing on those? And it was prosciutto and that kind of stuff, but it wasn't American country ham, which is something that I knew from the South.
Right. And
I was like, well, and now you started to see chefs even David Chang, they started to pamper, American country ham or serve it in the same way or give it the same respect. A royal treatment that they would do, pata negra or prosciutto Daniele, and you're like, oh, so they would slice it paper thin. So country ham was sliced thick, and you threw it in a frying pan and made red eye gravy.
Yep.
And so you did the red eye gravy to kind of like detract from the saltiness of it, right? So you'd have to rinse it, do all that. But if you slice prosciutto really thin, the saltiness, it just kind of melts on your mouth and it's less salty. And I was like, okay, so that sounds kind of cool. So like let's try to put those two together. And I ended up buying, I think I turned 40. My wife's like, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, you know what? I got everything. I'm cool. To be honest, I don't want for anything. This is great. Never mind. Then I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And I always thought that I had to like open a restaurant so I could raise money so I could actually afford one.
Right.
And I was like, no, I want a slicer. And she's like, what? I said, I want a slicer. So I bought one, and it's still in my dining room to this day. And we slice ham on it. Generally, like when I was gone, I'd come back on like Friday morning or Thursday night, and in the morning I'd put one of the hams on it, and so it would kind of come up to room temperature, and we just slice throughout the whole day or the weekend. And I'd say, who wants hamon for breakfast? My kids, on the intercom, they all come down, and so it was like it's always been this fun thing, and then we would entertain from like November to the end of the year, and then I was like, I got it. Like she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I want to open a ham bar, but mine is just going to be American, right? Everything's American, from the antiques that we collect that are on display in there to the wine.
I love that.
So we have wines back to the 50s.
That's a great freaking concept.
Yeah, and then all the cheeses, like the ham and the charcuterie American charcuterie, they haven't reached their heyday yet. Like, American cheese like 05, 06 came to the forefront, and now you have these groups of guys that are making these amazing hams, and I wanted a place to be able to showcase that. So right now we carry anywhere from 11 to 13 different hams that we have from all over the country. some legal, some not. My wife did say she was like, yeah, I want like a Eurocov with like illegal cheese, black market cheeses.
Just food people are so funny.
She was like, just enough of the edge, right?
my wife before she had went to Spain before we were dating, and she was going to smuggle all this stuff back in, and she panicked at the last minute and like put this $100 pound cheese in the garbage can. She had no fortitude to bring it home.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, what are they going to do?
Right.
It's going to take it.
They're just going to take it from you.
Yeah, right. Like they're not going to throw you in jail. They're not going to beat you up.
But literally, she just ditched it before she went to security. I was like, I'd have been like, shit.
Yeah, and then still, like, it's like, oh, damn, I forgot I had this blunt in my pocket.
Right.
I'm still trying to hold it. I don't want to. Well, maybe I'll go outside and smoke it before I come back, right?
Like,
I don't smoke anymore. Sorry. But yeah, so that was the idea. You know, to me, it was a love letter to American food heritage and culture.
Yeah,
I felt
man.
like that didn't existed. You know, like if an Italian guy and a Spanish guy will fist fight in the street over who makes the best ham. Mm-hmm. We don't have that. Nope. right.
Nope.
And I just thought, like, you know, everybody they're super proud of that. And I felt like there's been a lot of work, and they've been curing hams for over 100 years here. And, you know, some of the hogs that actually are used in prosciutto come from Ohio. And I said, okay, well, maybe we have something here. And that was it. I just wanted to we're only going to do American wine. And so we have tons of like old, cool, fun stuff to drink that's inexpensive, American cheeses. And like, it just, you know, to me, it just felt right. And that was
American cheeses, not American cheese people.
Cheeses. Like Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
We don't have Cheez-Its.
No.
We have cheeses.
I mean, and I think that's just it's a crazy concept on one hand. I mean, that's amazing, you know? Like,
I don't feel like we reinvented the wheel. It's just curation.
But that's you never really want to reinvent the wheel. That fucker went broke. Mm-hmm. It's just turning the wheel like 3 or 4 degrees.
No, it's cool, man. It's been really fun. And then, like, you know, a real sense of accomplishment in the sense that, like, ever since before I moved here, you know, the New York City restaurant scene, the landscape is legendary. Yeah. And just to be able to, like, it's not like me getting a star on the Hollywood, but, you know, it's like, you know, maybe I like wrote my, you know, like I'm like there, right? I've done it. I've opened a restaurant in New York, and it's a big,
that's a big
thing
fucking
for me.
Deal. That's a big deal for anybody. I mean, people really need to, it's, you know, that's huge. I mean, to open a restaurant in New York City is bananas.
Yeah, it took me 4 years, but, you know, I think I drug my
Only
feet.
4? I mean, that's pretty damn good. Man. You know, it's a story like people work 20 years and then they can't open a restaurant. So then like you got the wine shop, got the bakery, got the ham bar. You make wine and you write books.
Yeah.
Tell me about the book.
The book was something I always wanted to do. I think, you know, I think for a lot of people it's a bucket list thing. But we always feel like, oh, is my life worthy of that? Like, what would I ever put in that? What would I put in there? What would I do? Right. You know, my first attempt at it was like through humor. So I created the Small Time Cooks. Right. So it is volume 1. Like, in my mind, I've committed to 20 different volumes. So it's just fun culinary thing. And then it was so funny. I remember Amazon invited me out to Washington to do a fishbowl talk, which, you know, where the author comes up and talks about the book and then reads from the book. Mm-hmm. I was like, but it's a coloring book. There's nothing to read. And so at the time they were selling my wine through Amazon. And so we did like an unprecedented event where it was a wine tasting and it was, you know, a book drawing or whatever. So, but it was fun. You know, 99 bottles, it was an idea that really kind of started from an email where I was just sending emails to, you know, my people, you know, my family members of stuff they should drink. You know, it's always kind of like, hey, cousin.
Yeah, I know that.
You know, with the turkey, with the Kendall Jackson. And they're like, we much rather be drinking your wine or like whatever was out there. And, you know, I had already started designing the book on my computer. And so it was just, you know, basically it was like 99 bottles that you should be drinking now or this year. And then that gave me space to like do it every single year. And, you know, it's like, you know, spurge bottles, things over 25, things under 25, all kinds of like that kind of guide, like which we had seen done before. And then I had to start talking with my agent, and and then we just kind of took it in a different direction. I talk a lot about how wine is a placeholder of a moment in time, and that like we tried to chase that a lot, right? Like that $3 bottle, that €3 bottle that you had in Portugal was amazing, but when you finally tracked it down in the States, you say it fell flat. Yeah, and so much so that you think that it was a different wine, or they don't sell the Americans the good stuff. Right. Some of it might be true, and then. But it's really is that you're chasing that moment, the sunset, the conversation that people with, those smells in the air. Yep. And so for me, I was like, hey, so how about we talk about these wines that have scoped and changed my life? When I think about these particular bottles of wine, this is what I think about. Chateau Reyes, 1985, right? Dining room at Per Se catches on fire. Right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and to your point, I just want to interrupt. It's like, that's why, thank you so much for coming into a studio and sharing a bottle of wine, because, we got the virtual tasting, and one of my guests, he works for a wine magazine. He's like, I got to call bullshit on the Zoom tastings just because, and not, he's like, I understand we got to sell wine, but like this bottle of wine, like we both could have the same bottle of wine, but we're not sharing the bottle of wine.
There's a disconnect. You're right.
It's a disconnect. So, I'm gonna remember this '89 Kenwood Artist Series bottle.
With Picasso, that's Picasso on there. Picasso, baby.
That's right. Also with the 99. And out of the beaker decanter in the studio. And you're right, because it's who you're with. It's more than. It's more than the wine. The wine is an accoutrement, it's an enhancement. It's an anchor, if you will.
It's supposed to make all the other things better, right? It's there to set the background music,
right?
And so that's what it is. And we thought, like, writing the book, like, it's interesting. It's in chronological order, so you can read it from front to back, but it's in vignettes, so to speak, or snippets. It's not long pages or stories, but you could get a sense of idea. And you learn about wine along the way, even though the story's about me. So you get to learn about who I am, but you get to learn about wine along the way, and like that kind of stuff and behind the scenes stuff. So it was fun. It was something that I felt that I needed to like get out of my head and like get off my plate. It's by no means like the story of my life. That book's coming. I think I got a business book coming before that one. But like, the idea of like, I think I just needed to get it out there and say what I went through. And it was very hard. I had the experience of working without a publisher before, which was the coloring book, which was awesome and great. But I hadn't had the experience of working with a publisher. And so that was something that I wanted to do for this one. And that part was really hard because, I work in the realm where when I'm done, I'm done.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we done with that.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Right. Right. And so, you had people coming back and saying this, and I'm like, oh my God. But it was a good experience for me. It was a good experience for me. No, where you're like, I know. Exactly. I said, but I wouldn't say that.
Right.
And they're like, but it sounds like I think at the end of the book,
Dre, Dre dog. What if we said it this way?
It was just like you're like, oh my God. And she's like, but you wrote this most amazing book, and at the end, you say, "Fuck you very much," and I was like, yeah, it's called a mic drop. And she's like, oh, I go look it up on Urban Dictionary.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
But it was just it was a fun thing to do. I think, maybe I was a little bit too reserved in some parts, but like it is authentically me. Most of it was written on voice dictation on my phone. Right, you know what I mean?
I do.
Going to and from the airport, being in the airport lounge, being on the plane. So it didn't feel like a daunting task along the way, but at the end it was pretty big, compiling against some other stuff. But it was great. I truly gave birth to it, and it's fun to see it out in the real world. Like I tell my wife all the time, it's good, it's great, it's got great praise and all that other stuff, but it won't really be appreciated until like you see my whole body of work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when you put it all together, you'll see. Yeah. Right? You'll see. Like they'll go back. You want more, right? Yeah, it's like when you come onto somebody late, what's cool about it is that they have a whole library of work, right? Like, so if you only got to Drake at like, whatever, in the 6 or whatever.
Right.
There's a whole body of work that you can go back and listen to.
Right.
But if you started at the beginning, then like you're kind of waiting.
Right.
Right.
No, it's funny you say. I love live music, and one of the last live music show I went to was Raphael Sadiq was at the Pack in Newark.
I love them.
And it was like Valentine's Day, and like it's cold. It's February. I mean, we're like, do we really want to get on a train? And there's no time to eat because she was working, and shitty food at the Pack restaurant. Believe it or not, but. We mustered up our strength and we went. And then like you go to a show from somebody, Ralph Sadiq, and you're like, he was 17, he went on tour with Prince. Like his whole, when you see someone's body of work. So I really appreciate what you're saying. I mean, I'm like, fuck, he did that, he did this.
Well, it's not me being, I'm not being an asshole about it or being pompous.
No, it's not. It's reality.
Yeah.
Like you're creating stuff, you like building stuff, and like, and then there'll be a point where like, oh, like he, what song did he sing? He sang them all, but Never Rains in Southern California, right? Like they'd be like, oh, 199 bottles. It'll be like, that was shit. Now I look at what he did, and that was a seminal point in his life. You know what I'm saying? Like, like Prince's whole body of work, but like, you'd be like, you remember seeing Prince, and he came to Sign of the Times, like, oh shit, Sign of the Times.
Yeah, it came a long way from the dude with the trench coat with the nut huggers on.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And the blowout.
Yeah.
And he's 4'11", and got all the. Got all the hoes, man.
Yeah.
Prince was no joke.
No, he was awesome.
I see why you like him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. We talked about. So, what's your favorite wine that you've made?
It would have to be our Pinot Gris. It changes each year. Something,
Sure.
It's more about like what I'm excited about.
So I read somewhere you were excited about. There was a Pinot Gris that excited you.
Yeah, and actually it wasn't mine. It was,
I know,
it was someone else. It was Preytel. I love those wines. I give shine and credit where it's due.
Absolutely.
And I think what's really having the wine shop has really kind of given me a chance to revisit a lot of the things that I missed tasting wine, right? Like in that way from a buyer standpoint.
Right.
So it was just great to like see some of the new stuff. And, my relationship was with reps, I cherish those things. And, my thing was always like, all right, I looked at the book, I'm interested in this. Okay, now bring me 2 things that you're personally excited about.
Right.
And then bring me one thing that's important to the company. I.e., you get to keep your job if you sell me this.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It's 10 cases. What do you got to sell 10 cases of? I got you.
Yeah. No, totally. And so, I feel, like at least I get back in on that, and that's been great. And so to be able to taste some of these new wines from a lot of these new producers has been really fun for me. So Preytel was one of those ones, even though I think they're like right up the road from us.
Yeah.
But Gris is always been fun for me. Just in the fact that I, growing up in San Antonio, we did a whole bunch of research and like tasting, trial and error, but it was the Alsatian wines that went best with Mexican food and Tex-Mex. And so I finally got that right. We got, each year it gets a little bit better, but it's got that roundness, that texture. It's got the weight to it without being like overly cloying or sweet. And so I'm always proud of that, so I'm proud of that. But, it's like, I don't get the, it's some days it's like, oh, it's the Orgonia Chardonnay where it's like, we didn't make a lot, so the only time I really get to taste it is like when somebody has it in their bag when we're on a trip, and I'm like, oh shit, this is smoking. This is good. You're like,
yeah,
okay.
It's hard to find some of your higher, your upper level wines.
So because we just don't make a lot, right? We just don't make a lot, and and we're growing, and we're just trying to figure out different things. I do a lot of different projects for different people. I made wine for the Indianapolis Colts. I just do fun. I try to work on fun things and integrate, those things into what I do. So if it's working on a project with some 90s rappers or working on it with a sports league, that those are things that are fun, like, sports and wine together. So yeah, it's been good. That's, I would have to say the Gris is what I'm most excited about right now. But we have some other stuff in the works. We got some fruit from Shea this year, so that's gonna be fun. And then we got is
that going to be a single vineyard, or is it going to go into a blend?
Yeah, it's going to be single vineyard.
I would have to.
It's going to go into single vineyard. It'll be the revamp of Orgonia. So Orgonia, the last vintage we made was 15, and then we took a break. But then there's a whole nother. There'll be a whole nother tier of like some really fun projects and stuff that I've been working on, which I'd say like I get to have a little bit more creativity where I feel like, I've been doing the same thing for a long time, and you've seen a lot of the same stuff, like the same cuvées, the same packaging, that kind of stuff. But you'll start to see a lot of more like fun stuff, like more single vineyard Syrah from Washington from us, and just some really small things that we done packaged in a way that doesn't look like our stuff, like our traditional packaging, but like just all around fun. And so I'm excited about that, and to really I had several attempts of making Syrah and releasing it, and never finishing it, and then actually blended it into something else that we had, right? So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about just the wine industry in general. Just like it'll be interesting to see what happens once we all get past this, what the world will look like that, but like also the industry and what that looks like, and and what does that look like for me? Am I still getting on a plane every single week? I like traveling. I want to take the same amount of trips maybe, but for a shorter period of time. But I'm still 1 week a month in Oregon.
Okay.
Obviously harvest. We haven't been in the last 2 summers. As a family, I would bring my family out for the summer.
Okay. That's what's up. Man, Andre. Shit, I wish we had another bottle.
We ain't finished this one. We good. Come on. Come on.
See, I told you we were going to be fast friends.
Come on. I was going to go home, but I'm like, shit, I think I'm going to go have lunch.
That's what's up.
I'm like, I don't pay these people to why do I need to be there? They have keys. Why don't you let them in? Well,
so what would you say, so you mentioned you think you have a business book coming out.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you think, what's the biggest lesson you've learned? What are some lessons you'd share in that book? This is a Black Wine Guy exclusive, by the way.
Do it. Stop talking shit. Do it. Right? I had a friend who he had started a cigar company with his friend. Love him to death. And I remember he would always talk to me. He's like, hey, so did you run all your stuff through copyright? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I was like, no, but I got a product on a website and we're selling it.
Exactly.
Right? I have revenue.
Right.
And he never got his thing off the ground. And what I said to him is, that's your business. He's like, what are you talking about? Your business is telling other people what to do, how to get their business up and running. Like, you've got that to a T. You just didn't execute it.
Right.
Right. So that's your business. Your business is how to help other people get in business. Like, all those questions you're asking me, they're valid questions, but I'm not worried. I come from a place where hey, they're going to turn off the lights today. What you going to do? I don't know, but I'm going to go to work.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? If they off when I get home, then I'm going to figure it out. But the cure has always been in the work.
Right.
I'm not going to wait because I didn't get this or get that thing. I'm going to go forward and then I'll fix it. Right. And, sometimes that's worked in my life. Other times it hasn't. But my thing in the biggest part of the book is do it. We live in the world now where anything is possible. Anybody can be touched. Anybody, the fact that you could reach out. Now, I couldn't have responded. I probably didn't. Right. But anybody is obtainable. You can reach anybody with your message.
Right. Yeah.
And
Gary Vee talks about that. He's slide into the DM.
Correct. No, it is. The worst they can say, the answer is always no.
Yeah, exactly. It's already no until you ask. And then it was, I always wanted to have you on the show. It was Cattell Plevin. She was like, she saw my post and she heard I was having a podcast. She said, "Oh, I know some Soms who would be great for your show." It was you and a couple people. I was like, "Yeah, and we go back and forth." And I don't know who does your social, but they finally responded. And I had I
do it. That's why.
Okay,
that's why it took so long.
Exactly.
My personal assistant and his assistant don't. That's the only place I have privacy is text message and DM.
It's so funny because Dustin was on the show and he was like, if you need any help when you buy it, it's like, Andre's like, he's like, yeah, he's like, Andre's hit or miss. He's so busy. That's what he said. He's like,
I know, I'm hit or miss.
Yeah, he's
I think I was supposed to be doing something for something they were working on together collectively, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have to bow out. I just.
You must have to say no more than you say yes with all you have going on in your own life.
Correct. Always. And it's not that I'm being mean, but it's just like, you know what, dude, I really can't. And then you say, okay, I'm gonna try to squeeze in 5 minutes here. You know, the reason how I knew I was ready to have an assistant was when I was disrespecting other people's time. Like where it was like, I was supposed to get back to this person. I didn't get back, you know, sorry. And all that stuff is not, you know, it's only good enough to a certain point. And, you know, and then I brought someone on like 5 years ago and it kind of really changed my life. But like over the last 10 months, we've like been in this crunch where it's like, you know how many Zoom calls things I do? Like the Zoom shit. Sometimes I have to hide in my car from people, like just from my employees, just like to have a minute if I need to make a phone call.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I'll leave here. I'll have to do, you know, I've done, you know, I have to hop on for 10 minutes on this call, 5 minutes on that call. We gave away a dinner at this thing, you know? So, I mean, it's something that I created, obviously, but like, it's a lot. And some days, you know, people just out of the blue ask you stuff and you're like, oh shit, like, you know, I'm really busy. Like really, like, you know what I mean?
Right. No.
Right. And so it's hard, but it's good. That's funny that doesn't say it because he knows firsthand. He knows firsthand. He's like, he's hit or miss because it's like I'm on it. Like I'm like in it, you know. And it's like it's the weird shit. It's why I tell people is like one of the greatest. Like you've done stuff in your life, and then it's not like fishing. Like every day you get up and you eat something, you get an email, of like the most amazing stuff. Like some of it craps and some of it never comes to fruition, but the idea that like it's just popping off.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's so many, and this is before I had the connection for the what is it? The complexion for the connection, right? You know what I mean? It's before all that, right? You know, but the idea of like that you've built something and like, you know, it's every day is different. Like it's like, hey, so and so called from this. Hey, this guy's on the phone. You're like, who? And you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, it's just always like, and then it's like a crisis or where it's like, hey, you know, the pie place across the street is closing. And then it's all hands on deck because we're trying to buy it, right? Right. I don't care what project we have. Everybody stop right now. Exactly. We're going to go over here.
We got a 4-alarm fire across the street.
We're going over here.
We're going to go put it out.
All right. And, you know, so that's what I say when my life is about extremes, it's just, it's crazy. And then, you know, what's different about this is that I live 45-second walk away, right? Like
wow.
So it's like right around the corner, and so but there's a lot of that. But in the business book, I was just like, I just think that like you get to a point where you have to act on it, and with the tools that you have now, I feel like you can create a big part of it right away. The presence, the branding, the website, like that. I mean, that's like an international business card, right? Like having a website is the first thing everybody goes. And the idea, I always think about, you know, learning my timetables. My dad used to have me wake up early on Sunday morning, and I had to like do the multiplication table up to 12. I had to know it memorize from all the way up to 12. Like you generally stop at 10. 11 was easy. Right. You didn't really mess with 12, right? And I remember like talking to the teacher and saying, so, well, you know, this is really important. You need to learn this. She goes, what are you going to do? Walk around with a calculator in your pocket?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, and like,
well, yeah,
the world's is a super computer in your pocket.
Commodore 64 was a
Dude,
fucking home computer.
Yeah, I was there, bro.
Now you could have it, and you have 64K in the palm of your hand. You have 128K in your hand, right? And so it's so funny you walk around, but it's always impressive. You worked in finance when you can do the math, and you had people like, damn. I'm just like, hey, 6,000 cases. You're not they love that shit.
Yeah, no, they do. But now I'm kind of like, I just talk to my phone. Like, so if someone says, my kids are like trying to work out the math over there when they say, I'm just asking my phone. I'm like, you know, like, but like, and that, you know, we had like we have an ongoing discussion about, so what do you teach your children now? Right, because you know, and everybody's like, well, we don't want them to be dependent on this, but like, okay, but like, to be competitive in the world that they're going to grow up, what's important, right?
Exactly.
It's like tense, like how to spot. Like my kids are taking a online class about like fake news and like finding out like the sources if they're credible or not, right? And then present tense, you know, the tense of words, right? Because at some point they're just going to morph you are and you're together. They're just going to do you are, and then you figure it out, right? Right? You know, but it just dawned on me. It's this thing. It's like, so what do you put in their brain? Obviously, morals, emotional intelligence, right? Those things. But like, is it important for you to know the capital of Zambia?
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect to Zambia, but like just like
especially because it's in the palm of your hand.
Right. So now, what do you put in there? That and a sign of intelligence was really measured based on retention. Well, some of it, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so you were smart because you could do the math in your head, or
right.
you could recite these things.
No, you can't do it in your head because I could do math in my head. I could never show the fucking work. They would hate it. I'm like, okay, I figured out there's the equation. Okay, there's the answer. Well, where's your work? It's in here.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it out. So that's a whole other thing when you talk about education. Like, what's intelligent? Like, isn't it intelligent to know how to use the tools that are in front of you?
Mm-hmm. You know? And that's my thing is this is the tool. So
right.
how do you go about that? But also I say to people, this is the most powerful thing, and everybody has one.
Yep.
Even the people who can't afford one.
Well, listen,
has one.
everybody. Listen, I'm people who live on assistance have better cable than I do because I ain't paying $400.
No, right?
But they got the full cable and the 65-inch TV. So you're right, but everybody has a phone. It's so accessible. And it's a modern tool. So
and that's it. You know, it's like I tell my number two, right? Oh my, I don't even say their names anymore. I call them all Junior, so they all come to attention. I'm saying Junior. They're like, you talking to me, Pop? No, the other one, right? You know what I mean? So they get their attention. But like number two, he's, I tell him it's like, okay, it's for consumption too, right? So I get it. You want to play games and all that other stuff, but also it's a tool. So what are you going to do with it? What are you going to make with it?
Produce more than you can consume.
Correct.
That's the model.
And but it's for everybody. It's like, look, so what are you going to do? You're going to pay your phone bill, you're going to pay your cable bill so you can watch someone else fulfill their dreams?
Right.
Or are you going to put it down for a second and do it? I understand the importance of TV. Me and my wife go round and round, but I was like, I wouldn't be here without TV.
Right.
Like TV gave me
it was
a
right
portal
into another world,
correct.
Man.
Yeah, you got to dream. It let me dream about all the places I could be or go, or what was out in the world. Because I'm just seeing, crock vials and tennis balls and needles in the playground, right? And so you say, okay, but what do you think the phone? I mean, the phone is like you could be anywhere. Right. Like the idea of having a pen pal. So I just say that you already have some of the most powerful tools already at your assistance.
Get your ass in gear.
Yeah, to build like anything that you like. I used to read every single self-help book. I'd be that guy in Barnes and Noble reading all the treating it like it was a library. Yeah. And you realize that like they all said the same thing.
Yep.
They all said the same thing. And then you also realize the only reason that they are probably have more wealth than you is because I bought this book, right?
Yeah, let me tell you something. I used to be heavily in that world. I've worked with a lot of big names. And the reality is most of them, they've made their money. Mm-hmm. They didn't actually have a business. They made their money writing a self-help book based on other self-help books.
Correct.
That's what they do, and it's a butts and seats business.
No, and I totally I get it, and as I
get
started
it
to read
too.
it,
but you're right. Like
as I read it, as I started to read them all, you realize, oh, no, this is all the same. Like they teach some of the right principles, but like there's no secret, right? You like they all say the exact same thing. And I realized it's like, oh, you're just selling me that. Because you know what? Because if I was Jimmy Woo and I had a real estate secret, I ain't telling nobody.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not telling anybody.
If you could buy houses all day with no money, you'd own every house in the world. You wouldn't have a fucking course about it, man.
Yeah, for $39.95. So when I started to realize that I realized that there had to be there has to be real business sense books out there, right? And I feel like you start at the smallest level, and the idea of like going viral, like all that is like so funny. It's like someone gives you you just need to now go viral, and it's like, well, it just doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't work that way, son.
You have to be able to build. And everybody's just caught up in the wrong shit.
Yep.
Right. Worry about cashing real checks than a fucking blue check.
Right.
Right. That's what I tell people. It's like, oh, you verified? No, but my bank account is right. I cash real checks.
Exactly.
You can have the blue verified check. I don't care about that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
The most important notification on my phone is sales notifications, not like.
Right.
Right. So I just like my thing is that I don't fall too much. You can't fall too much. It's a tool. Build something with it. It's going to help you build something. But we all have it. Having the idea, and it's always room for two. Right. Like Polo. Tommy Hilfiger. There's always room for two. Star Trek, Star Wars. Right? It's always the same thing. They always
Nike,
come up with
Adidas.
You have to have
That's
it.
True.
And the fact that someone does, it's not always important to be the first. It's
no, because the first person often gets killed.
Correct. So You have to.
First person for the door gets punched in the face.
Yeah, and that's how that works. And you have to be willing, like, to say, okay, someone else did it, but like I can be better. Like, how about making it better?
Right.
Right. There's so many models out there that can be approved
Steve
upon.
Jobs did not invent the cell phone.
Correct.
He just improved it.
Correct. And that's where I tell everybody, it's there. It's all there. Everything you need. It's just how bad do you want it? Right. And it's everything in life.
Yeah.
Right. Now I'm sounding like a self-help person, but it's true.
No, but
how much
it's
do you
from
want
experience. I mean, I think you like whatever you do, you've transcended being a som. You're building a business empire based on one of your passions.
And everybody should. You have you can do it. It's always funny, right? Like, so I'll talk to someone, like we're trying to buy some property from somebody, and I'm talking to them, and I'm so hyped and inspired. They're like, then they try to renege, like, well, maybe I shouldn't be selling it, right? Exactly. Right? Like, all of a sudden, I'm excited about. They're like, well, wait a minute, or the idea of being excited about entrepreneurship, that somehow, like, now my employees, they don't, like, when I say shit to them, they're like, oh, he's really talking about me, right? And I was like, no, we all have to, like, work for other people. But the other point is, my assistant, my thing is, like, I'm big on entrepreneurship. You know what? Use my attorneys, use my resources, start your own company, right? Start your own company, call it whatever you want. I'll write you a check, right? Now you get to manage all your finance, all your other stuff, but, like, now you're in business. Right. You've been a business owner for 5 years now. Right now, figure out your views have changed now a little bit, right? Right? Like, the morals and the things that you built, that you say this now, all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm a business person, and so what tax loopholes should I be looking at? Right. Because the other side's a jack move, right? They didn't took the taxes. Now you got to fight to get them back.
Oh, it's the truth.
The other side is, it's still a fight, but, like, the deck is stacked in your hand because you have the money. You got to pay them.
Right, exactly.
Right? Instead of, like, you fighting for it back. But, like, so it's all those things.
And they tell you what they're giving. And they're telling you, this is what you get back versus, like, I know dudes, like, they're like, audit me. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. I'm still going to pay less in taxes, even if I have to get an attorney. Yeah. I mean, and it's true. And
yeah, that is very. I know some dudes like that too. I know a bunch of dudes like that. Yeah. But that's it. Like, I'm in it for that way of, like, and being an entrepreneur is not like this. It's not like this, this glamorous thing.
No,
right?
All
of it is work.
It's work.
And I never ask my employees to do shit that they've never seen me not do. Right. It's like, no, we're gonna do this together. Let's knock this out. And I think my neighbors would think, like, so you're the only waiter in here? I said, well, it's COVID. Like, yeah. Like, what am I, like, I was just, like, hang out somewhere, right? No, I'm here. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm, like, hands-on. And I think that's why I'm busy. I think, like, a lot of my friends are like, so how come you just don't hire someone? I said, well, I want to learn the business too. Right? Just because it's like, it's here. Like, I want to understand everything. And then I won't be here. Right? As much. Right. But I think, like, grassroots, pull up the boots, do the stuff that you can do, and then learn it. Like, that's really, I think, for me, is that I spent my golden hours are like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And, during that time, over, decades of my life, I've taught myself new skills that I've been able to use, so I didn't have to wait on anybody else. Being graphics, that thing has, like, really kind of changed my life in that sense that, like, especially an artist, like, I created something, and now you continue to get paid for it forever. I did Barolo King 13 years ago, right? You know what I mean? Those things you still get paid for, like, but even, like, just art, but, like, even, like, on the social media channels, like, all of those things, it helps. And that's why I tell people, try to learn a skill or do it yourself, or do something that keeps your interest. Like, I shoot a thank you video for almost everybody who's ever bought anything from us.
Nice.
Like, personal.
Nice.
Like, yo, MJ, what's up, man? Thanks so much for grabbing those bottles of Love Drunk. Let me know if you need anything. Blah, 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 blah. Cut.
Yeah. That's what's
right.
Up. That's what's up.
That's what's up. And think about that. Like, we buy things from people all the time. Steve Jobs never sent me a thank you email.
Exactly.
Or note. Justin Bieber, all of them.
Yep.
All of them. T-Pain, Lil Wayne. They never sent me anything. And, like, but that's where we're headed. Like, it's, there's a sea of wines out there. There's, competitions everywhere.
Yep.
What makes it different?
Right.
Right? I should be thankful. These are the people, was the 80-20? These are the people who actually bought something from me.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, guys, there you have it. You have had We talked about the show being about the Mavericks, the philosophers, and the deep thinkers, and I think we've over-delivered today. So many lessons, not only on wine, but on life and business and philosophy. I want to thank you so much,
Thank you.
Dre, for coming in. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I'm everywhere. In your sleep, in your thoughts. I'm everywhere. I like this, man. I might have to give me a podcast. I like this. Anyways, I'm André H. Mack on all the platforms. That's it. Just keep being you, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you, my brother. We're going to do this again a couple episodes later, for sure.
All right. I'm into it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
All right, y'all. This is MJ. Till next time, here's to the philosophers, the Mavericks, the deep thinkers, and, of course, all you wine drinkers. Black Wine Guy. Peace.